Welcome to Project Insight's Power Tutorial Series. Today we're tackling one of the biggest challenges in project management, capacity planning. In today's 30-minute Power Tutorial, Steve and I will show you how to build trusted capacity planning process using the work, resource, schedules, and estimates you already have. You will also see how our AI-driven suggest a resource feature evaluates skills, roles, availability, and current workload to recommend the right person for the job, not just the person with open hours. These capabilities help you replace guesswork with confidence. You will gain a clearer picture of your team's capacity so you can make better staffing decisions, balance workloads, and deliver projects more predictively. A few housekeeping notes. Everyone will be on mute. If you have any questions as we go, please feel free to use the chat. You will be able to access this recording at the link that you have joined from. Steve, are you ready to get going?
Definitely. Always ready for capacity planning.
Yeah, right. Well, I have good news, Steve. Our team has grown, right? So here
hmm
I'm looking at my department, and I have two new members, and that's kind of the scenario that we're going to be describing here. Daniel and Lauren are my new team members. They are relationship managers specifically here, right? So I can see some attribution or some different user profile pieces that I have on here. They work for our organization. They're in my department, right, which I'm
Yep.
filtering by my department, and then I can see the role that they're serving, right? And those we're going to kind of talk about as we continue through this concept around capacity planning. So here, though, I've got their blank slates, right? I have what,
Yep.
just these two new bodies that I can assign work to. I can see each of them. I'm showing the assigned work here, which we can see is 0, their capacity, which is 40, and then what's remaining, right? And as we go through and add time, we're going to watch this chart grow in real time with their actual capacity assignments that we make. So,
Yeah. And some questions that people always ask right up front when it comes to capacity is yes, that is a number that can be changed based on the person's profile. They can have their own personal schedule. You can factor it by a percent or by the actual schedule they're on. We have a client that they have different vacation schedules because native have one and the European have another. So you can definitely tailor all of these numbers. So in our case, though, we're keeping it simple today, 40 hours.
yeah, I think that's a really strong call out there, Steve, though.
Yeah.
Everybody can be on their own work schedule and all of those different
Yeah.
pieces.
And also you
So,
can specify when they're beginning. So some of our clients have, oh, they're starting in September, so you don't want to show you want them in the tool now because you're planning, but you don't want their capacity to start until a certain date. So you can specify when their capacity begins and when their capacity ends, as
yep.
well as tailor the actual capacity number. So we're just starting here on a night, just to keep it simple for this demo, 40
Yeah.
hour standard work week right here. That's what it
I th-
does out of the box.
Right. And I think that that idea though of the start date's so great with this concept of new hire, right? Had I
That's
said
right.
I know I'm going to get a person named new hire 1 and new hire 2 on, I could have then replaced it with these names as you go through if you care to, right? So
That's correct. You can do it that way as well. Yeah.
yeah. So one and the same, we like my department, right? In this role specifically, like a lot of teams, we have some standard work that we need to execute on day in and day out, right? It's not all project work. I have some things that we do that we call keeping the lights on. Some
Yeah, run
businesses
the
call,
business, keep the
yeah,
lights on. This comes up all the
business as usual, right? Is
right.
the other one. Yeah,
Comes up all the
exactly.
time. People right away after knowing how can I tailor the capacity, the next question is, well, what do I do about all the other things this person's if they're in IT, it's a help desk. In your case, then maybe they have to do sales. Not everybody's time is entirely dedicated to project work. So
Right. Yeah.
that's
No,
what we're
so
about
I,
to show you.
I want to assign this to my day to day, right? So
That's
what's
right.
nice about this is I don't need to get into the granularity of the task. I can, and we're going to talk about that in a step or two. But for this type of work, I can just come into our resource allocation planning board where I'm really just allocating my members to this project. So these are the team members that are on the project, and then I'm saying how much time each of them is going to have on here. Right? So I had those two new hires. Our first one was Daniel, as far as that's concerned, Harper. So we're going to bring Daniel on, and we're going to want Daniel to be on my business as usual or keeping the lights or whatever we want to call this project 15 hours per week. What this is doing is it's going to assign him that time from the start and the end of this project based on what I've set up here. So this particular project began last September. It's going to end toward the tail end of 2026. You can see today's date here, right? So I can come in here and, even say, you know what, actually, he's not starting this week, and I've got other work for him to do on the first week that he's going to be on. So, his real piece will begin here. I'm going to hit save. And what that's going to do is allow me to come back into my resource allocation report and rerun that. And in real time now see Daniel's allocation to my keeping the lights on projects, right? And those timetables that we put in there.
Yeah, and
So,
this is what we call top down. This is a top down approach. We allow one of the unique things about Project Insight is we have top down capacity planning and bottom up, and it's all mixed together. So it's not, you don't have to go to one tool for your top down and one for your bottom up. It doesn't matter how you enter it. And this makes it really easy. You saw how quickly Matt was able to just put 15 hours in. That's his average time that he's busy doing business as usual, doing lights on, whatever you want to call that. And the other thing we didn't mention just a minute ago was that management, he's doing a lights on for his team
right.
for a set period of time. You might choose a year, you might choose quarterly. I would say most likely you just pick the year, make your project here to show what does this year look like. Then at the end of the year, you can close it out and make a new one. And each management team or each department would have their own.
Right. It makes it so simple for me to and then the other benefit to this is, and we've got tutorials on this, but now they can log time directly against this project because they're assigned to it as
That's
well.
right.
In the event that I want to say, hey, was that 15 hours adequate, right? Are you actually doing 20 hours of this kind of activity? Are you doing 10? And I can give you more project work, right? Then I can
Yeah.
kind of suss that out later down the line.
Yeah, a
So,
couple other things about this. You see there's a button there at the top, export import. So some of our clients have like big teams, so you can pull that out in Excel, edit it, and pull it back in if you want. But just choosing the default right there, there's just one box to enter. You don't actually have to put any entry in the other boxes unless you're deviating from your average.
that's right. Yeah. And what is really great as well is you can change the rules that you're setting here with this allocation as well within the project. So if there were tasks on the project, I could choose to combine this allocation with
Sure.
anything else that's assigned, or just use this instead of, or only use this until we start getting tasks in play, and then we'll utilize the
Yeah.
task
And
allocation.
and that's where you might use the top down. We're showing business as usual, but a lot of times the top down is used for when you're initiating a project. You really don't have time to plan the whole thing out, but you know roughly what you need. So you would potentially use top down planning for that as well. And you can see there's a little checkbox right there by the save button that you can say, I want my plan and earn value to be calculated from these numbers, meaning that we're going to take these hours and multiply it times their rate that they have either with your rate card or on their profile, and actually calculate the financial aspect of this without you building out a whole project plan.
Which actually, I was just going to tie the first part of what you were going to say, but both of those concepts, Steve, a lot of the times is what project managers are doing anyway in their side piece to keep track of what
Yeah.
their allocation is, anyhow, right? You just talked about maybe 2 or 3 different Excel sheets that I'm keeping for allocation and cost and all of this, and I can literally click a button and hit save and do all of that right here, right? So,
Yep. And those can be placeholders too. We didn't mention that yet. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but yes.
That's right. So I'm going to save. I'm going to get Lauren on this one as well, and we're going to double back into this report, and we're going to refresh, and we're going to see that Lauren's also associated. Now, I did something. I made a mistake intentionally here, and that's that I didn't. Remove allocation from Lauren this week and next, right, when they'll be training, which I can actually do inline here, which is really helpful on these kinds of reports. I don't need to go back into each individual project, which as we start to load more and more projects on here, this will be more and more beneficial for me to go in there and balance my team or edit what sorts of workload or assignment people have on projects.
Yeah,
So
being able to do this from the report is so helpful. You don't have to go back to that other view. The other view is great for when you're beginning and you got the whole big picture, but now you're trying to fine tune your allocation. You can decide right on the fly, oh, you know what? We're really busy. I know that you normally do busy business as usual for Lauren, but you know what? This week we're going to tell her, don't worry about that extra work. We're going to zero you out and get you allocated for something else. And that you might do that if like you're over budget on your time and the project's really important.
right, or maybe that's right, Steve. Or it is just straight crunch time. Maybe you're not over time, but it is that one time where everybody has to bubble in and do a little
Yeah.
extra and then smooth it back out, right? So
Yeah.
now the other thing that I need to do to my new team so that way they're properly trained, so Steve continues to be happy with me, right, and reporting to him, is I need to train these guys. I need to provide them a little bit of training. What we've done here is just create a really basic project, August 2026 new hires. I put training in here. I've got 5 days of 40 hours worth of work. You can see that I've already queued up the idea of the relationship manager. And that's because I created this project when I put in my new hire rec, right? I said that I knew I was going to get these people. This is the date that I wanted. I had no idea who they were going to be, but I knew I was going to get my relationship managers there. Um, Steve, something you wanted to
No, I'm
say?
just saying that,
Oh,
and
okay.
now what we're heading down is this is what we would consider bottom up.
Yep.
One single task in this work breakdown structure. Don't you wish all your projects should just be one task?
Oh my gosh, I know. That's so
But
funny. I'm gonna right. I'm gonna slide into a much more complicated one in a minute, which is
yeah,
more of a reality. But just to understand the how easy it really is, though, right? It is just as simple as here's the task, here's the dates, and boom, here's what you're going to be doing.
yeah,
Here's who's doing it. Now, Project Insight, like we talked about, has the availability to suggest a resource and find me somebody who has that skill set with availability, right? So I had said what sort of resource I needed. I can come in here and say, and find me somebody. What that means is it's going to find me all of my relationship managers. It's going to automatically sort them by availability, right? So I know who's who. I'm assigning Daniel and Lauren in this particular instance. I didn't really need to go through this exercise because I knew who I was assigning. But that's how simple it is for Project Insight to find somebody who has the capacity, has the actual ability to get that work done, and then say, hey, you're going to be on this particular assignment, right? And I'm going to assign Lauren as well. And then just go ahead and save this.
yeah. And a couple of things about that is that now if you were to pull that right back up real
I was
quick,
about to. Yep.
great. So now let's say we know that Lauren's over allocated. You can do, you can find out someone else who could take this on. And what you just saw a minute ago was, and here you can see that for this time period and a little bit after,
Mm-hmm.
it shows you all the same things that that report showed. What it's doing though, when it tries to find a replacement for a person or a skill, is it looks for people that have the same like attributes as the person that you're replacing, and it's a balance of sorting them, how busy they are, plus how much did they match. Meaning like
Right.
their skill or their resource type, what department they're
What
in,
department
that
they're in. That's why I
all,
pulled this back up, right,
yeah,
Steve? What department they're in. Correct.
right. So it may suggest somebody who maybe doesn't have as much availability, but they more closely match the skills required to do this the type of task.
It also will look at what types of items they've completed in the past as well, if I'm not mistaken, right, Steve? Where it'll say, if you've done specific task types or something
Well, there's a
on that.
comparison,
Yeah,
person to person comparison that's it's kind of a weighted in with the busyness.
wonderful.
So,
What's great though here is on these assignments, I can still drill in and see their capacity during that window, right? I'm looking in that snapshot of when this task is actually taking play. I can see the other work that they're assigned, and then this particular, new hire training piece that I have them on. I can see that on this particular project, which is great for when I'm, assigning someone. And I can, of course, come back in here, rerun this report, and then I'm going to have a little bit more suited teams where these guys are looking better for the time that we want them working, about 40 hours a week. So,
yeah, and you can see that just pulled that other project in. So we have a top-down project in there, we have a bottom-up project in there, and we can see their total capacity. One of the other great things about the top-down is that people who use like DevOps or Jira, PMs will oftentimes create a cover for the team that's in the Jira and in our tool. And it's not business as usual necessarily,
yeah,
but you know how busy they are in there because those tools really don't keep track of this information. You can bottom up out of Jira, but I got to tell you, like most of the PMs we work with, the teams that are using those other tools don't have really accurate effort
the
entered
estimates.
into DevOps and Jira. So you say, okay, well, we know they're busy, so we'll put a top down in. They're going to be on this sprint for 40 hours for the next 3 months. Now you can
Yeah,
see how busy that team is, or maybe
right.
they're only work half-time on some sprints and another system. So Project Insight can keep track of the projects that we are managing in our own tool, plus keep track of the projects that are outside of our tool as well
That's right.
through
Yeah,
those integrations.
and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we show a project that's a little bit more complicated than this as well. So
Yeah.
the other part that's really nice here is that I can have two members or resources assigned to different workloads on the same task if I wanted,
Hmm.
right? So they don't need to be equal. And if this task was over an extended period of time, I could also even balance it out over different time periods as well, right? And say, you've got 80 hours over the course of 2 months, but I know that in the first 2 weeks you're going to do 50% of the time and then the rest will be smoothed out. You can go in there and do that, although we'll smooth it out automatically for you.
Yeah, and you can
The
basically that's leveling. And
Right.
one thing I always mention to people, sometimes doing the effort is intimidating to customers, and don't it's not that complicated because you don't have to be perfect. Just get something in there. If you're close, you're going to get a lot of value.
Well, I'm going to actually even talk about that right now, Steve, how we make it easier. After I click save here, just wanted to prompt this idea that if I am over allocating somebody, we can be warned, right? If
Yep.
through any of these pieces I'm going to start to overburden somebody, I can say, "Whoa, slow down. Are you sure you want to do that?" I can say yes, or I can say no, and then I can double back in and say, "Yeah, actually, 40 hours is all the new guys probably going to work in that first week." What Steve was mentioning was what we do run into all the time. This concept where people feel stressed about even tracking, from the top down, where it is just as simple as saying, giving a rough estimate to say, I don't know, Steve's going to be on my project 10% of the time, or 5 hours, or whatever we want to put in there. But also from this level here of the task. And that's actually one of the reasons why we auto configure the work hours and let that be something you can customize and configure globally or project by project. And what I mean by that is if I'm saying I've got a new task to get done here, if I say that this task is going to take me 5 days, Project Insight's automatically going to configure how much effort that will take based on what my project is configured at. In this particular instance, it's 100%, right? 40 hours. So 5 days, all of a work that works worth of week, right, will be right there, and that's what that is. But a lot of the times, it's 2 hours, right, Steve, per day,
Yep.
or 1 hour per day, or whatever you need, based on the type of work you're doing. And in that way, as assignments are made, Project Insights doing the guesswork for us and taking that kind of uh, friction away from the process for us. So,
Yeah, and that's a setting, by the way, that you can decide that right now the default is, and this project is showing a full
yep,
40 hours or, one day, 8 hours. But yeah, he's matched now showing you.
I could change that to be 2 hours a day,
Yeah,
right, or 1 hour, or whatever you
right.
wanted it to be.
So if you
So,
put in a 5-day task, it'll say 5 hours.
yep. So, but that's that, and we've kind of, I'm glad I've got my team training, but Steve, I've got other work for them. We hired these guys for a reason. I had a backlog of things that I needed them to do, and unfortunately, like we were kind of joking about, not all of my project plans look like this. A lot of the times they may end up looking like this, right? Where I have
Yep.
much more complicated, connections. I have pieces that are interdependent upon one another, where Steve has to execute on this before I'm able to do something and move my piece forward, which then I hand the baton off to somebody else. And more often than not, our project plans have look more like this. Here I can see, I've got this perform what if scenario right here, and this is with a relationship manager, and I have what Steve was mentioning earlier called a placeholder resource in here. And this is basically us saying, hey, I know I need somebody for this role that has that skill set, but I don't know who it's going to be, right? I'm not certain as to which member of the team or who's going to take that on. This could theoretically be a team assignment as well, where all of my relationship managers could go in and take that on. That's not how we do it. We do a one-to-one where I need to assign somebody here. So again, I'm going to use this, suggest a resource power that Project Insight has. I don't want to pick between Daniel and Lauren. I'm going to let it sort, kind of who makes sense here. I'll see, Daniel's on top, so I'm going to go ahead and assign him. And then, now I'm starting to fill the backlog of assignments that I have for work in the future there. Again, like these other assignments, if I double back in and I refresh, I'm going to see Daniel's got a new piece here. He's up to 3 projects. We're making really short work of this piece here, Steve.
Yep.
I've got him covered through September at this point, right? So, now I just need to make sure Lauren starts to get some of the pieces as well. The
Yeah.
sorry, were
Yeah.
you?
One other great thing about these assignments,
Yeah,
and I think most of you know, especially the customers, but if you're a prospect or somebody out there, the fact that you have these tasks, you're doing these schedules, that gets assigned to the individual, to Daniel and to Jennifer. They have their own work lists in our tool
right,
that they can see all the things across all their projects, what they need to do. So not only are you're taking the work out of the spreadsheet, you're actually sending them a notification automatically and automating that whole thing while getting the
exactly.
data you want from a capacity standpoint or a budget standpoint. So the idea is to stop, putting it all these 20 different places, and just, if you maintain your schedule and you maintain your out capacity planning on your top down projects, now you get all these extra benefits.
Right. That's right. Yeah, no. The work list is great because then they can also mark it as done, and then now my
Yeah.
progress even really does progress forward,
Yeah,
right?
if
So
everybody's using the
the
tool now, that you're as a PM, you're going to get a lot of benefit from this, because all they got to do is mark it off. Plus, there's templates and all the other things that go with this stuff.
right, yeah, that's right, Steve. The other monumentally powerful part of when I am using tasks and I am connecting them together is our intelligent scheduling. And I'm going to flip to the Gantt chart on this same project we were just looking at. In fact, if I refresh, which I had it open in another tab, I'll see that now I've got an assignment on that resource manager here. But what we want to talk about is any connections that we do have between these tasks will push out any of the other connections that they have. So if I need to make this task longer, I can drag the duration out. Or if I need to push it out, I can do so. And then every subsequent task that's connected to it, which in this case, it's the whole project, right, slides out accordingly based on project's intelligent scheduling. I don't need to go in and update this sheet and that sheet and this sheet and then call Steve and say, hey, Steve, your task is now in December. It's not in November anymore. The tool just did all of that for me because all I did was this. It drug
Yep.
my piece out, and that was that, right? So that's the joy of that. The other piece to this is whether I'm doing the piece in moving the task date here on the task list, or whether I'm using the Gantt, or whether I'm using the planning board and I'm moving the tasks and creating them here. It has the same impact, right? So there's a lot of different input ways to work with all of the different ways that my team think. All in all, we still get that same roll up that we're looking for. So,
Yeah, I mean,
um,
all those hours are shifted on those reports, everything automatically, everything's connected.
that's right. So the last piece we want, we got about a few minutes left, so I got to be quick, is I've got a few more pieces of work to assign, Steve. I did have a couple more backlog items. What I did was I ran a quick task list for myself. And what I did was I said, hey, I want incomplete tasks and I want tasks with that placeholder resource of relationship manager. And then I'm just running this so that I understand what I need to assign still to those members.
Yeah, and this is
The,
across all your projects.
that's exactly what I was just going to say. You can see the projects are here, so it's across all of the projects. So rather than me going in one by one, I can come in here and say, hey, find me a resource. Boom. Again, the powerful engine here will say, who should I find? I'm going to assign this one to Lauren. I can go ahead and save that. And now, again, Lauren gets all the automatic notifications, but then they have that assignment. Now, the other way that I can make these assignments, and this is actually the way that I prefer to do it for my team, is I like to use something like this, which is actually, the same report we were looking at. I've expanded it a little bit to where now I'm actually looking at my team specific, or this role specifically. So I can see Daniel and Lauren were a part of the other members here. I can drill in and expand and see all of those assignments just like I could on the other one. But what's handy about this one is I have my placeholder in here. So I can drill in and see all of the projects where I have outstanding work that I need to assign, right? And then I can really just drag in here, see the project, the task, and then I can move it from one member to another. This is the same impact as me doing this on any of those screens, right? I can move it across and do any of those parts, but the goal of this is I can come in here and balance my team out right here.
Yep.
Another way that's monumentally popular is to do that same idea on a report where you're showing a chart, right? So I have the ability here to say, this is my team's overall capacity. I want to show an area graph below with, how that's going to stack up. I'm going to just run this particular one, and then I can start to see how these are going to fill out, right? And again, as I move them from relationship manager, they'll go into their appropriate buckets.
Yeah, I want to go back one tab real quick. There's
Yep.
a new feature there that we want to call out for customers.
Mm-hmm.
And that is now one of the other things you can do in here with this big report is you can decide how you want it to be sorted right there. You can say there he's got it. He just wants this to be by user with the most remaining capacity. And that'll auto sort the whole thing based on data, in the past. And most reports you can just click a button, but this is a little more complicated because you might want to sort by the department that has the most remaining availability, and it'll prioritize all of those sorts so that everything comes out or
Or
priority.
that's what I was just going to say. Actually, Steve, I don't care about what department, I don't care about what team it is. For us, it's about what priority the projects are, right? And I want to
Right.
make sure that I'm getting my important ones done first. So you can come in there and do that all
Yeah.
the same here. So,
Right. And where you're going to do that is on the filters. If Matt pulls that back up, you'll see a
yep.
new section called presentation sorting. And that's where you can say sort by, you can choose how you're sorting. So in this case, he's got sort. Now he's going to choose by the project priority there and remove the user most capacity. So whatever is the highest priority project sorts at there. And you can have more than one sort in there it'll sort out it'll figure out what level how it should sort at each different level. So
Right.
at the project level, we want the project sorted by critical. At the user level, we want it sorted by most available time or
Yep.
remaining capacity. And that's really makes this really useful.
That's right. I was going to show that on this one, but all the same, it's the same
Oh,
idea. You can do it on any of them. This one has the graph on it, so tomato as far as which one you go on. That's the joy. You can also and pin to another tutorial do the what if simulation here. And the
mhm.
last minute I want to talk about is kind of what Steve was saying was this isn't the only team, right? These aren't the only resources that I have, even, right? On my department, I've got, people outside of relationship managers, and I can really easily look at my department again by using a filter and just saying, hey, show me literally my department, the people that
Yep.
report to me. I can drill in and do that. And then I hand this torch to Steve, who gets to look at all of the departments, right? So
Yeah.
he can say, hey, what's Matt's team doing? Here you go. Here's his whole team. Here's their capacity, and drill in and see that. This can be sorted and looked at differently, but the goal is I can go from very easily, I have work to assign, I have different methodologies and how I can get that assigned, and then that can roll up to a aggregate level of what everybody's doing in my organization, in less than 30
Yeah, I mean, you
minutes.
can see basically you can see the whole organization, everything. And we showed you just a couple different ways to slice and dice this. There's more roll-ups, more ways to slice this information, and you can save those reports for yourselves, because everybody does want to look at this differently. If there's some common things, and then at the end of the day, each business has its nuance. But these are features we're really proud of.
That's right.
I think that there's not tools out there that we know of that can do all this stuff that as easily as we have it set up here.
Yeah, normally, like we said, the first one screen was 3 sheets. Now I'm 22 spreadsheets deep to give you this reporting that I need to give my
Yeah.
executive here, right? So if you've got any questions about how to put this to use for your organization, please use the QR code now. That's a really helpful hub of information for everything around this topic specifically. If you are a customer of ours and you've got questions, reach out to your dedicated point of contact. And if you are not yet working with Project Insight, please reach out to sales@projectinsight.com. We'd love to show you how we can put this wonderful, powerful piece of our project program and portfolio management tool to work for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.